What's going on YouTube? Mr. Wheels here once again, welcoming you to another edition of Sports Talk. And as promised, this is my 2016 NHL Stanley Cup Playoff Preview and Predictions video. Now, the playoff bracket is not 100% set yet. However, I didn't want to wait until after 10 p.m. tonight to find out if things were going to change. And it might change a little bit with the way the bracket is right now, but I will address that when I get to those specific matchups that it would affect. Now, you can click the annotation there in the corner to see my last video about the Detroit Red Wings making the playoffs for 25 straight years. And before I get started, don't forget to slap that like button and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I could really use the support, so please give me a like and a subscribe. Now, I've already talked a little bit about this first matchup in my previous video, but I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail. Tampa Bay versus Detroit. And I'm going to tell you straight off that I think Detroit's going to win this series in 6 games because Tampa Bay has a lot of injuries. Steven Stamkos and Anton Stroman are definitely out for the playoffs. Ryan Callahan and Victor Hedman might miss all of the first round. And let's not forget that this is a rematch of last year's first round matchup, and Detroit was up 2-1 and 3-2 in that series. And in my opinion, being a Red Wings fan, I really don't think Tampa Bay won that series so much as Detroit lost it, having been up twice in that series. So I'm saying Detroit will possibly pull off an upset in a lot of people's minds, and they're going to win in 6 games. Moving on to Florida and the Islanders. That's what I have here right now. It could be Florida and the New York Rangers if the Islanders win tonight, but I don't think it's going to affect my prediction either way. I have Florida winning this series in 7 games. Not taking anything away from the Islanders, but I just think Florida, they've been at the top of the league this year all season. They've got a solid goaltender in Roberto Luongo. Yaroslav Halak is hurt right now for the Islanders, so Thomas Greiss and Christopher Gibson have shared goaltending duties for the Islanders. And I just think that Florida, over a 7-game series, will edge the Islanders. It'll go 7 games. It'll be very close. It could go either way, but I'm picking Florida. Moving on to what I have here is Pittsburgh versus the New York Rangers. And it could be Pittsburgh versus the Islanders, but again, I don't think it's going to affect who I'm picking either way. I should point out that Ryan McDonagh and Dan Girardi for the Rangers, their 2 top defensemen, they're hurt right now. And I like the way Pittsburgh's been playing. I don't particularly like Pittsburgh as a team, but you can't deny the way that they've been hot right now. And I think they're going to learn from their previous 2 years of kind of dropping the ball in the playoffs. They've got a tough matchup, but I'm saying Pittsburgh in 6 games because of the injuries on defense to the Rangers. Now, moving on to the last matchup of the first round, Washington versus Philadelphia. This season matchup was back and forth, each team trading wins back and forth all season long. But I think Washington is going to come out. They're the best team in the league after the regular season. They're going to make a statement against Philadelphia and prove that they're in the playoffs for a long run. I'm saying Washington in 6 games, and I have a personal vested interest in Washington this year. Justin Williams is a family friend of mine. He's friends with my family. He's from my hometown, so I want to see Washington do well. Philadelphia, they're going to put up a decent fight. They've been fighting for their playoff lives for the last 2 months, and it's a feat just for them to even get into the playoffs, but they're going to run into the best team in the league, and I'm saying Washington in 6 games. Now, I'm going to continue with the Eastern Conference bracket before I move on to the West. We'll do the entire Eastern Conference first. So, for second round matchups, I have Detroit versus Florida. And, even though Florida has solid goaltending in Roberto Luongo, and a very good young team with a good mix of veterans, Detroit has even more playoff experience, and something needs to be said for getting into the playoffs 25 straight years. I think this is Detroit's year to move on past the first and second rounds. I'm saying Detroit in 7 games. Now, not taking anything away from Florida, it could easily go Florida's way, but I'm saying Detroit in 7 games. I think their experience is going to win out here. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that matchup. Moving on to the other second round matchup in the Eastern Conference, I have Pittsburgh and Washington. Not much I need to say here. Crosby and Ovechkin, we all know what that brings. It's one of the best matchups in the NHL. However, I'm going with Washington. I'm saying Washington in 7 games. Moving on to the Eastern Conference Final, what I have is Detroit and Washington. And I'm going to say that this is where Detroit, even though I'm a Detroit fan, this is where Detroit's luck will run out. And I'm saying Washington in 6 games. And they will move on to the Stanley Cup Final. Now, let's move. I hope you've stuck with me to this point. Let's move on to the Western Conference Final. Or Western Conference First Round, sorry. I have Dallas and Minnesota. I like Dallas, and a lot of people, I've heard people pick Minnesota as a dark horse. If any team is a dark horse, I think it's Dallas. Nobody's talking about Dallas, really. I could pick 2 or 3 other teams besides Minnesota that are more of a dark horse than Minnesota. Minnesota, in my opinion, is not even as good as they were last year. They're a wild card team. They're lucky to be in the playoffs. I'm picking Dallas in 5 games. Moving on, St. Louis and Chicago. I like St. Louis in this series. They have home ice advantage, and I'm really torn when making this pick. I think they match up well against Chicago, both offensively, defensively, and even in net. I mean, these teams are very evenly matched, in my opinion. And I personally want to give an edge to St. Louis. However, Chicago is the defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. I say they take a very close series in 7 games. And St. Louis, their playoff history is suspect to me. They'll do better this year, but I'm saying Chicago in 7 games. Okay, moving on to LA and Nashville. Now, if there was ever going to be a major upset in the first round of the playoffs, I would take Nashville over LA. However, I think LA's been on a mission since the start of the season, considering they did not make the playoffs last year. And they even got off to a rough start this year, but they've been on a tear for most of the season. I'm saying LA with home ice, they'll finish it in 6 games. And finally, last matchup of the first round in the West, Anaheim and San Jose. Now I know Anaheim is probably favored by a lot of people, but I have questions about their goaltending. I don't like John Gibson or Frederik Andersen, and even though Anaheim is a very physical and very good offensive team, I like San Jose. Again, nobody's really talking about San Jose, and I originally had Anaheim picked, but I'm picking San Jose to win in 7 games. It's going to be a close series, and I think James Reimer is going to be the difference. San Jose went out and got James Reimer, and why would you go out and get him if you're not going to use him in the playoffs? He's out of their 2 goalies, him and Martin Jones. Reimer has the playoff experience, and that 7-game series in 2011 when he was with the Maple Leafs versus Boston, he was not the reason they lost that series, and in fact, the reason they got to 7 games was in large part due to Reimer. So if San Jose plays Reimer, I'm saying San Jose in 7 games. Second round of the Western Conference. Dallas and Chicago. Dallas has got a good team. I like them. I really want them to win this series, but again, I think Chicago is good enough to beat them. Again, I'm saying 7 games. It's going to be very close. It could go Dallas's way. I'm picking Chicago though. Moving on to LA and San Jose. Now this is a rematch of the first round from 2014, and I don't think San Jose will be up 3-0 in this series again like they were a couple years ago. It's going to be close. I think it'll be more back and forth this time around. I'm picking LA in 7 games. I just think they're the better team coming out of the West and the best team in California. They're going to win their first division title in their franchise history. I'm taking LA to move on to the West Final. Now, again, this is a rematch of the West Final from 2014, and I once again think it's going to go LA's way. I'm saying LA in 7 games, possibly in overtime again. You know, I know a lot of people might pick Chicago to be repeat champions and win their 4th cup in 6 years and be a true dynasty, but a lot of people are also saying that Chicago was already a dynasty with 3 cups in 5 years, and I think LA is really going to surprise people and move on to the Stanley Cup Final and be one step closer to being mentioned in that same conversation for 3 cups in 5 years and also being a dynasty at the same time Chicago is also considered one. So finally, my Stanley Cup Final picks. I have LA and Washington, and I'm really torn when I make this pick. I hope you've stuck with me this far along. In short, guys, I want Washington to win if they make it this far. I think they're favored somewhat to be the Cup favorite. Obviously, I would like to see Justin Williams win his 4th Cup with 3 different teams. But I don't think it'll happen. I think LA will, take that step and be considered by some, myself included, to be if Chicago is considered a dynasty, LA is going to be too. I'm saying LA in 7 games. It could go either way, and I'm really torn when I say that, because it would mean that Washington wouldn't win their 1st cup, and Justin Williams wouldn't be bringing the cup back to my hometown. But I like the LA Kings, and I'm picking them to win the 2016 Stanley Cup. So, hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Sorry if it's a little long. I wanted to go into a little more detail than most people do. If you look at most of the YouTube videos for predicting Stanley Cup predictions, nobody shows their face. It's usually set to some really lame music, and nobody gives really their opinion on why they're picking the way they are. Well, that's not me. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to give this video a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. My links to Facebook and Twitter will be in the description down below. And that's all I have for right now. I'll see you next time.